Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Beautiful day in the Ozarks, a little windy today. And it's very much elevated fire risk around here, so we'll see if I have a busy day or not. We've got about 2 weeks away now from the most likely scenario is that the old notches on the crazy-o-meter will be raised up a few notches, I would say. And that's putting it very mildly, and I think most of you probably agree with that. We're watching events happen, and we're watching an election season just get to the point that we know, based on what we learned 4 years ago, that we're going to see something happen. There's just, I can't imagine a scenario at this point that 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks from now, let's say, that we look back and say, wow, it's amazing. That just went by without any kind of hiccups, and everything's normal, and there's now this peaceful transition or whatever. Well, either way, it's going to be a transition, but peaceful transition of power. That'd be great. We have a lot of craziness in store for us. I saw something late last night that there's another migrant caravan headed to the border, thousands and thousands. And there's been reports all over of early voting being way, way higher than ever before. I think it was yesterday, maybe not yesterday, today probably. Whenever, soon, recently, they had early voting starting in Texas, and the numbers coming in already is just way, way higher than they've ever had before. And a few other states is the same way. And then there's states reporting that the amount of people registering to vote this time around is just crazy numbers, like many times higher than they've ever seen before. And I'm seeing a lot of conservative Trump supporters, cheers, say that's great. And maybe it is. But we also have to realize that it's quite possible that a lot of this is illegals that are registering to vote. Because as we've all learned over the last several months, that in many states, there's not really anything preventing them from doing that. Even if it is criminal or even if it's wrong, there's not really any checks and balances in place to prevent an illegal from registering to vote in a lot of areas. So that could be part of it. Could be a lot of dead people. It could just be a lot of people registering to vote, and we really don't know yet who those people are and how they plan to vote. The point is that already there's what seems to be a large turnout and a lot of energy poured into this election. And what that translates to me is that regardless of which way this election turns out to be, that there's going to be large amounts of people that are going to be very upset. Upset to the point that we could see large amounts of violence. There's multiple potential scenarios. I know most of you probably have already thought this through. Let's say Trump gets elected, the left just explodes in anger and rage, and the time period between the election and the inauguration is just chaos, and there may not end up being some type of inauguration. Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios there. Trump doesn't get elected. The right gets mad. States start threatening to secede. Goodness gracious. And there's violence there, and the right, finally throws the last thing down and says, oh, all of these MAGA Republican extremists and conservatives and stuff with their guns and Bibles are so dangerous. We got to shut this down. And, there's a lot of scenarios that could potentially play out. And I'm strongly believing that the least likely of these scenarios would be just a peaceful transition of power, a peaceful election. It's almost like the rest of the world is kind of betting on some type of craziness happening too. You're seeing all these, like Israel saying, well, they're gonna do their attack against Iran before the election, right? You're seeing all this stuff kind of like it's like the whole world is kind of getting ready for that. Not just the United States, because they know that this is serious. They know that the rest of the world, most of the elites, most of the leadership, most of the all the bankers and the corporations, they get it. And it's not so much about who gets elected this time. It's about that they know that I think that this election is the final springboard, final push to get us into that new world order, great reset, final takeover, final knockdown. I think, and I heard someone the other day, I don't remember who, say something similar to this, and they said it's like the whole world sees it except Americans. So many Americans just don't. They don't see it. They're not paying attention. They're not aware of what's going on. They're focused on sports, or they're focused on something else, and they're not even paying attention to what's actually going on. Or maybe they're just focused on the election in kind of a normal way. They're not really paying attention to what's actually happening, and it's much bigger than Donald Trump or Kamala Harris or the presidential election. That it's the whole world is going through a rapid, forceful, violent change. And I think that most of the only people in the United States that really pay attention to that anymore is just folks like you and I. Like we're the ones kind of really gearing up and getting ready for it. And I know that many of you are still very hopeful that, good prevails, that the good guys win, or that Donald Trump is the good guy and he wins and all this, and it's still possible. But I always point out that if we are in those end times, that many of you believe that we are, then it's not going to get better. There's not I don't read much of a scenario there where the good guys win during the end times. It's completely continuously worsening. And if we are in those times, and there's a lot of indications to show that we probably are, we need to really take things seriously. And it's not just this like frantic, militant drive to preparedness. I mean, yes, we absolutely need to be putting a lot of very intense and serious effort into it. But it's also building stronger and stronger relationships with our family members. You and your spouse, you and your husband, your wife. Your relationship, your marriage, your bond needs to be stronger now than it's ever been. Because I assure you, the levels of stress, the levels of tough times that you're going to go through is probably going to be harder than anything you've ever faced. I mean, to do a comparison, most of you know this. When a husband and wife loses a child in death, tragic thing. But when they lose a child in death, the odds are that their marriage will end in divorce. And it's just simply because of the amount of stress and anguish that's put on the two that it damages their relationship, and they end up separating. And I'm not saying that people are going to start losing their children, but the level of stress and anguish that we will be going through could be comparable to that in some ways. And we have to understand that our relationships, so the husband and wife relationship, the parents and the children's relationship, the believers, your little tribe, your little circle, that relationship needs to be strong. Your relationship with the Most High needs to be as strong as as you can possibly make it. You need to be consuming His Word, spending lots of time in prayer, and like really hardcore prayer and fasting to a level that you've never really done before. Because the war that we are about to face, especially if we are in those end times, and I'm not just talking about economic stuff and World War III and violence in American streets and Civil War. I'm talking about something much bigger, deeper, and greater than that. that what we could possibly see in our lifetime may be greater and worse than what any human has ever experienced. And so as we're sitting here, it's almost like we're sitting on a beach, you know, and the weather's nice, but you can see off in the distance, out in the ocean, you can see that there's a really bad storm coming. You know, maybe a hurricane, maybe you see a tsunami, whatever it is. You can see it coming, right? You don't know exactly when it's going to hit. You know, you don't know when that storm is going to make landfall. You're sitting there on the beach and you're still seeing sunny skies. You know, the seagulls are flying around. The waves are crashing in. It's getting a little bit harder, and you can tell that's kind of changed. But for the most part, you look around, you say things are still really nice sitting here. The breeze has picked up some, right? Maybe a little rain starting to fall. But for the most part, it's still pretty nice where you're sitting there on that beach. But you can see way out there in the ocean, and you can see that there's a big storm. Sky is black. You see lightning bolts flashing. Maybe you can even hear the thunder now. And it's coming at you. And you know it's going to be really, really bad. You don't know when it's hitting, but you know it's got to be soon, because that storm is getting bigger and it looks closer and closer. And you can sit there and continue to enjoy the beautiful weather and just say, well, you know, maybe it'll hit, maybe it won't. You know, maybe it'll be today, tonight, tomorrow, next week. Who knows? Or you can be proactive and say, okay, I know that there's a storm coming. I know it's bad. It looks awful. I mean, the sky is black. It's getting bigger and bigger and worse and worse. And I probably need to get up from this beautiful day and do something to get myself, you know, take some kind of shelter, you know, board up my windows, make sure I've got, you know, water and everything ready, because that storm's coming and it looks like it's going to be one massive destructive storm. And I should probably do some things to get ready. That's really where we're at. I mean, the world has definitely changed over the last few years, and it's gotten way worse. But there's still aspects of it that just look beautiful. You know, you can still go to the store mostly with freedom and fairly safe, especially in some areas. There's still things that resembles normalcy, right? We all know that things are changing. We can feel the winds picking up. The rain is starting to hit our face. That tide is coming in stronger and stronger. Waves are crashing against the rocks harder and harder. And we can see it out there. We have to be getting ready. And the relationships are a huge part of it. Don't just focus on how much food and water and medical and bullets and stuff you can stick back. Focus on those relationships. A random little thought here. Speaking of ammunition, I saw that Winchester ammo is raising their prices after the first of the year. So probably should, if you can, stock up before then. But really, we have to be focused on these things and focused on the things that really matter in our lives and strengthening those, because the war it's coming upon us, and it's going to be a bad one. We need to get ready. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.